I'd like to say that we are in the 16 days of activism against gender based violence. So I wanted to share something that's very close to my heart. And today we're going to talk about this. We've seen it, we've heard it. Just say no. We've seen the campaigns. Three simple words that sound fairly easy enough. Three words that make all the difference in the future from the choices we make. But why? Why is it difficult for women to say no? Why is this one syllable, two-letter word hard to say for millions of women all over the world? Did you know that saying no is challenging for many women simply because it's really a complex mix of societal and cultural reasons? It's not that simple. No doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as the word yes. Now, this cultural tendency to teach girls to say yes or to be compliant has deep roots in patriarchal systems and gender roles, which have shaped societal expectations of women's behaviors for centuries. And let's start. It really all goes back to ancient history. From ancient and medieval societies, women were often seen to be subordinate to men. The primary role of women? Being a mother, a wife, a caretaker. Men were the hunters, and women were left to care for the children in the cave. Unlike the animal world, did you know there are species where females hunt for the food and males stay home and make the nest or even guard the eggs until they hatch? Birds, fish. Gender neutrality in the animal kingdom is more instinctive and advanced than human society. Another thing, the religious and moral teachings during the medieval history all the way to the 18th century actually pushed the gender roles. Religious teachings reinforce that women should be obedient. In fact, for example, I'm a born again Christian. Christianity is one. The biblical figure of Eve was sometimes depicted as what? The archetype of disobedience, the tempter. Siya may kasalanan. And spiritually upright women were instructed to be submissive to their husbands. And one role model is Mary. Now, during the 19th century, gender roles started to slowly, I wouldn't say improve, but there were changes. The concept of angel in the house. This was a term popularized by a Victorian poet. It became the central idea of femininity in Western culture. And what was that? Women were expected to be in society pure, selfless, and one who suppresses their own feelings. I'd like to share one of my favorite authors, Jane Austen. Do you know Jane Austen? So, Jane Austen, an author in the 18th century, was viewed as subversive. Why? Because she wrote female characters that wouldn't say no. She wrote female characters that just weren't set off to be married because they didn't have a dowry. She wrote complex characters of women who are women today. So we move on. The 20th century saw a ray of light. That's when we saw women fighting for the right to suffrage or to vote. That was in the first part of the 20th century, and women fighting for in the latter part of the 20th as well. So the feminist movement during that time challenged the traditional roles of women. That's when we saw women advocating for equality, self-expression, agency, or the right or the sense of control. It was just in recent years, the 1960s to the 1970s, that the feminist message emphasized that women and girls should have the freedom to say no, whether it's with career choices, relationships, or marital status. For men, saying no was always an option. But women subconsciously didn't see no as an option. Our collective history shows that women were essentially raised to say yes, including myself. I was raised to be obedient, submissive to male authority, whether it's your father, your husband, or other male figures. Women, all of us, were meant to serve or acquiesce. We have been conditioned to believe that our existence is for the consumption of other people. To serve is to please. Women, all through the centuries, didn't think no as a right, but as a privilege. Just recently, the Child Marriage Act became law. What? Last 2 years? Girls were meant to be agreeable, accommodating, and pleasing. Another thing, the word no also has bad PR. Yes is good PR. No is perceived dictionary wise as a negative, while yes is a positive. No is associated with being difficult, selfish, unkind. Traits women aren't stereotypically known because women are known as self sacrificing. But the truth is, no is a sentence. No is complete. What does no really mean? No means I do not want this. No is a boundary. That one word. No is a conviction. No is power. The truth is, no is an essential life skill. The problem is, we haven't been trained. And the only way to learn an essential life skill for girls is to start at a young age. Saying no confidently without guilt or fear is muscle memory. When we are trained, we can confidently say it when the situation calls for it. So, training to say no starts in the home. How can we teach girls that no means no? Not like this. I'll see. I'm not sure. Let me try. So, do you hear yourself saying at home, hey, give them a hug. Give your uncle a hug. Give them a kiss. Give them a kiss. Tell them you love them. I grew up that way. Today, our eyes are open. We see how irresponsible and dangerous it has become to give girls these commands without asking or caring how uncomfortable they are. We need to teach kids consent. I was never taught that as a young age. No and yes are both choices for consent, not yes alone. When we tell girls, be nice, be polite, we must be able today to articulate that being polite doesn't equate to being a pushover. They're not one and the same. That you can say no politely. Do you also, as parents, perpetuate gender based norms at home? I had that growing up. Girls wash the dishes. Boys don't do house chores. Boys are the boss at home. Sisters learn how to serve. We as parents are guilty. Girls wear pink, boys wear blue. When girls learn the life skill of saying no, this benefits them all their lives. They learn empowerment and autonomy without having to learn it in a talk, for example, because it's ingrained in them. They develop a sense of control and they learn to assert boundaries. They develop self confidence, and girls are less likely to second guess themselves, which will protect them from gender based violence. These boundaries help girls recognize situations ahead of time which may be at risk or situations that can exploit them. And this helps girls when they become women in decision making. Once girls have learned that no is an option, it is a right, it's a choice, it's not a privilege. When they get to work, they'll be able to make choices based on their own values, not on the external pressures around them. And lastly, no builds resilience. No teaches you to stand alone. It will teach you courage. So, no is an essential life skill. It is important to learn. As Malcolm Gladwell said, if it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert, imagine just how many times you need to say no to actually learn it instinctively. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today.